Sorry that I had to cut off that last video. The bell was ringing, the announcements were happening. It was just crazy time over here. But it did allow me, a good thing here is it did allow me to kind of prepare my answer here for the tan theta equals root 3. And I'm just going to go through a kind of a generic first quadrant analysis here. So this part here would be pi over 6. This is pi over 4, and this is pi over 3. You know all that stuff. You might want to just quickly sketch out a little table like this. My x value at pi over 6 over here, this is my x value, which is cos. My x is disappearing. This is my x value. This is my y value here. And my tan is going to be equal to my y over my x. And my cotan is going to be x over y. Okay, and I could continue this even. I could do secant is 1 over x, and cosecant would be 1 over y, but I'll just stop the chart at that point. So at pi over 6, my x value is my root 3 over 2. Oh, this is kind of funky. I think what it's doing, it's centering my answer right away. Oh, okay, we'll see what happens here. My y value is 1 over 2. So my tan value would be root 3 over 2 over 1 over 2, so that's the same thing as root 3. Kind of cool. So the cotan for that would be 1 over root 3. Doesn't know what to do with that. This is kind of crazy. Let me just pause here for a second. Okay, I'm back. I just did some adjusting. Hopefully it'll work better here. So for pi over 4, so that's this spot over here. This is where we have our root. Oh, I'll get my pen back. This is where we have our root 2 over 2. And the sign is the same, root 2 over 2. And so our tan will be 1. Okay, our cotan, which is the reciprocal of that, is also 1. For our pi over 3, these two, the x and the y kind of switch places here, so root 3 over 2. And then so our cotan here is our y over our x. So, oh, you know, I made a mistake here. These two are mixed up. Let's just fix those. My y over my x will be 1/2 over root 3 over 2. So here I'll erase these, and I got those two mixed up. It's good that I'm doing this. Here, so my y over my x, or my sine over my cos, so that's 1/2 over root 3 over 2. So my instead of doing a complex fraction, you see how that works? Instead of doing 1/2 all over root 3 over 2, what you do is you multiply both the top and the bottom by 2, and you get 1 over root 3. So that's where this comes from. Cotan will be the reciprocal, so that's root 3. Now tan will be y over the x. So for pi over 3, it's root 3, and for cotan is 1 over root 3. Okay. All right, so the ones that really stick out in my mind that's kind of easy to figure out is this pi over 4, because your sine and your cos, your x and your y are the same, so that's why you get a 1 and a 1. As I just demonstrated by getting this mixed up, it takes a moment to sort of think these ones through, but if you think about what's your cos value, what's your sine value, you can put that together. Let's go back to this question here. It says tan of theta is equal to root 3. So we've done all this work and we say, oh yeah, tan is equal to root 3. That's got to be pi over 3. And if you kind of remember how it's going to be worked, tan is going to be equal to your y over your x, or your sine over your cos. And since we're going to have a root 3, it's going to be this root 3 over 2 over 1 over 2. You kind of recognize this pattern. So it's, in other words, when you see this tan of theta is equal to root 3, think the one that's in the numerator has got to be root 3 over 2, and the one that's in the denominator has got to be 1 over 2. So when is that? That's pi over 3. Okay, so y over x. I'm just noticing here this question is actually in degrees. I'll switch to green so I can write out, okay, so what are the degrees here? So this pi over 6 is equal to 30 degrees. Pi over 4 is 45 degrees. And pi over 3 is equal to 60 degrees. So we're talking about right over here. So it's our 60 degrees. Okay. So if tan of theta is equal to root 3, this is going to happen at pi over 3. So there's our reference angle, and tan is positive in the first quadrant, negative, positive, and then negative again. So where else will it be pi over 3? Or where else will it be the square root of 3? It'll be square root of 3 in that same family over here. Okay, and so we're talking about multiples of pi over 3. So this is pi, so it's got to be 3 pi over 3. So this is 4 pi over 3. Okay, so when we're thinking about our pi over 3s, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. Those are our pi's over 3. So normally I would, at this point, if it was just from 0 to 360 degrees, then our answer would be 60 degrees. And, oh, what would that be in degrees? 180 plus 60. This would be 240 degrees, right? I'm always thinking in radians here. So we got 60 degrees and 240 degrees are those two spots. But we don't want between 0 and 360. We want between negative 180 and between positive 180. So in other words, our positive way of thinking, our positive angle is we can start from 0 and we're only allowed to say how many times is this true up until we hit 180 degrees. So as we go through this rotation, we get one answer, 60 degrees. So our first answer for theta is we're going to get 60 degrees. Oh, I guess I should say there. Theta equals 60 degrees. Only happens once. Now as we go in our negative rotation, so this is our positive rotation. Now when we do our negative rotation, we're supposed to stop at negative 180. So this would be 0 and going the negative. This would be negative 90. This would be negative 180. Right? So we're supposed to say how many times is this true for this? Bingo, it hits right there. Now our answer is not 240, is it? It's 0 going negative, negative 90. How much more would this be, right? If this is 60 degrees here, then if that's part 60, then this part is 30. So the answer would be negative 120. Okay. Another way to say it is, what's coterminal with 240? So if we have 240 degrees, right, and remember how we did this? We subtract 360. If we subtract 360, that's where we get a negative 120 degrees. So our first answer is 60 degrees, and our second answer is negative 120 degrees. So that's the answer for E. And I know I did a lot of work there, but this is probably a valuable chart for you to take a look at even later on. All right, let's see F, and then we'll be done this section. I need a sane color again. So for secant of 2 over root 3, I'll deal with this interval a little bit later. So if secant theta is equal to 2 over root 3, remember that secant is a reciprocal function. It's the reciprocal of cos. So if I do the reciprocal of both sides, I will get the cos of theta is equal to root 3 over 2. Okay, so when is the cos in the reference angle equal to root 3 over 2? I can kind of cheat over here and say, oh, it's pi over 6. So theta is going to be equal to pi over 6. And this time we are in radians, aren't we? Okay, but now let's think about this interval. So not quite as nice as my previous circle, but here's my circle. So in the positive direction, we're allowed to go up to pi. So going in our positive direction this way is positive. We can go all the way up to pi. Okay, so how many times is this true? Well, we have our pi over 6 answer. So there is our pi over 6. All right, and when will cos also be equal to root 3 over 2? And that's a positive value. Cos is also positive because it's x in the fourth quadrant. So cos is positive here and positive there. So my second answer is going to be over here, right? So now we're allowed to go positive all the way up to pi. We only hit it at this solution. So we only hit it at pi over 6. This is pi over 6. All right. Now let's go in the negative direction, and we're allowed to go in the negative direction all the way up to negative 2 pi. Good time to change color because now we're going in a different direction. So now we're going in the negative direction this way, and we're allowed to do all the way up to negative 2 pi. So in fact, we're allowed to go all the way one complete revolution in the negative direction. Okay, so how far is this in the negative direction? This would be negative pi over 6 here, right? Negative pi over 6, and then almost an entire rotation, we'd get to this spot. So in the negative direction, that solution would be equal to negative 11 pi over 6, because in a complete rotation it would be 12. So our three answers are in the positive direction pi over 6, in the negative direction negative pi over 6, and negative 11 pi over 6. And there are our three solutions. And you do have some homework to go with this one. I think it just got, yeah, here it is. Somehow it got put on an extra page for me, so you got a couple pages to work on. So we'll be working on that in class.